the recording is on, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the May 16th, 2024 Select Board meeting. I'm going to open this up and please ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the agenda.
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the board can vote to amend or approve the agenda. Tonight, we have a public comment from Diana Hoke, the town's Veterans Officer. Items may be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. The number one item is acceptance of a donation to the Sherborn Fire and Rescue Department. Chief Zach Waters here. Item number 2 is the recap of the 2024 annual town meeting and the May 14th annual town election. Jackie Morris is here. Consideration of appointment to the Farm Pond Advisory Committee. Caitlin Sullivan as an associate member for a term to expire June 15th, 2027. An update on our annual appointments to take place on June 13th, Select Board meeting. I'll speak on that. Item number 5 is a discussion regarding the special municipal employee designations. Jeremy Marset will speak with that. Number 6 is establish a special revenue fund under section 53K of chapter 44 of the general laws of the Commonwealth for ADESA special permit funds. Item number 7, consider petition to the general court for special legislation to allow town to convert one license for the sale of beer and wine and malt beverages to not be drunk on premises to a license for the sale of all alcoholic beverages not to be drunk on premises, Art Specialties, 11 South Main Street. Item number 8 is the consent agenda, which is the payroll warrant, draft minutes of April 18th, 2024, 2 one-day liquor licenses for Pauline Bounds for the community center, and a one-day liquor license for Kenneth Onifray, Crafted Mass for Silverwood Farms. Item number 9 is select board reports. Item number 10 is town administrator reports. Regional School Committee capital projects, Upper Charles Rail with rail trail feasibility study, local delegation budget request for FY25, Washington Maple intersection construction update, and staffing updates.
Great, thank you very much. You said we asked someone for public comment?
Yes, Diana Hoke is here.
Yeah,
Right.
shall I go? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Diana Hook, in my role as Veteran Services Officer, I want to bring to the board's attention and to members of the public that Sherborn will be holding a Memorial Day parade on May 27th. Those of you who are participating in Select Board, that means you, we are gathering at 9:30. The parade at the DPW garage on Butler Street. At 10 o'clock, we will march on to Pine Hill Cemetery for the dedications. And from there, we will go to the memorial statue on the corner at the intersection of 16 and 27. And after that dedication, everyone is invited to the community center for refreshments. This year, we are able to offer veterans who are unable to march or do the hike up to Pine Hill Cemetery a ride in a convertible. I've had a couple of town residents volunteer to take veterans. So I'm here to help spread the word to any veteran who's unable to march, but would still like to participate in the Memorial Day event, that they should reach out to me and we can make arrangements for them to join the parade.
That's great. Thank you so much, Diana. And I will also make a quick comment that I forgot to vote on the agenda. It's been 3 years since I've actually chaired, so please forgive me there a little bit, but I don't think that affects the public comment. And I will say that I've done most, if not maybe all but one of these since I've been in the select board, and it's a great event. And I advise not just members of the board, but also members of the public to come enjoy this as well.
Yeah, I was trying to move to approval of the agenda before you had called on her. So can I do that?
No, sorry about that. Let's consider this my practice round. All right, do I have a motion relative to the agenda? Yeah, please, Paul.
So moved.
And I second. Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. All in favor of Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I am as well. All right. Thank you all very much. Okay, just moving on. Go to agenda item number 1, acceptance of donation to Sherborn Fire and Rescue Department. I believe Zach is here for that.
Thank you. I'm just before you tonight to request the board accept a $200 donation from the Lee family on Farm Road, and there are no stipulations or designated purposes for those funds. Thank you.
So
Awesome.
can I move
Paul,
to
I think you want to
accept?
make a motion. Yep.
Yes, can I move to accept the with great gratitude, the donation from the Lee family and to authorize its expenditure for the purposes for which it was granted.
Excellent.
Second.
Do I have a second? Second by Stephen. All in favor, Stephen.
Aye.
Marion.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
And I am also aye as well. I just want to make a
Thank
comment
you.
before we go on to the next agenda item. There's some comments in here, and as select board, we've keep our chat feature on. And I think it's gonna be good practice also maybe moving forward, just to acknowledge that we have the chat feature, but it's not part of the public record. Sometimes we look at it, we acknowledge it, but sometimes it gets too much. So we record these meetings because are always available, and I encourage people to raise their hand and stuff like that and comment during items. But the chat feature itself, consider it like if you're at a public meeting and you whisper something to the person next to you or something along those lines. So that's really what it's about here. So other than that, just gonna be a regular meeting, just like it would be in a public meeting where you're acknowledged and you speak and we respond and so on and so forth. But I think the chat feature, personally, I think is some kind of nice to have, people can talk back and forth. Now, the chat feature was not an agenda item. I'll acknowledge it's a limited discussion on it, but something that we've done for years. So I'm assuming, Doug, you have something to say about the chat feature?
I want to say thank you for turning it on. Other boards on in the town of Sherborn fight mightily not to use the chat feature, even to do exactly what you said, which is talk from person to person in the town. I think it's ridiculous. I have a question about the gift to the fire department.
Oh, sure.
Is it important that the town formally accept gifts like that?
It's required by law.
Okay, well, because the Kingsley family gave a multi-$1,000 gift to the police department last year. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Does anyone remember? Was that? Sorry, I apologize if I don't remember. Was that come before this board?
No, we just gave it to the police department. We bought the outdoor furniture, the potter, the flower pots, and a variety of other things that are adorning the outside of the police department.
Well, let me thank you right now for that gift. We can look into if it went before, so I don't trouble remembering a lot of the specific items. And thank you, obviously, for that gift.
No, I'm
we'll
just,
look
I'm
into
not
it,
looking for, but thank you for saying, I'm not looking for, applause. I thought I didn't realize I had to like register a gift. I just gave it. It was like $5,000 or $6,000.
We'll look into make sure it was officially processed correctly. I do want to acknowledge, Paul, you have something to say? I'm going to acknowledge Sean after I say something, and I'll acknowledge Sean. Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to try to help clarify. I believe that gift, as with many for the fire department, went to the association, the police department association, not the actual department. That would be the defining this. There's hundreds of gifts per year that go to the firefighters association as well that don't go through this channel.
So it's not a government entity. It's essentially a private or a for whatever nonprofit, something like that. So it doesn't have to go through the process of us.
Correct. I think that was the difference.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, all that. We'll move on to item number 2. That's a recap of the 2024 annual town meeting and the May 14th annual town election. Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview. I'll start with the town meeting. We ended up having 204 people check into town meeting, which based on our active voters of 3121 at the time was a 6.53% turnout. The highest vote count that we had was 195 and the lowest vote count was 125. So I would suggest that next year we consider a discussion of an article of lowering the quorum. We might not be able to lower the quorum next year because right now, as it stands, unless Governor Healy extends it, it will expire on March 31st in 2025. So as you can see, that's quite a big variant number of 70 people
So
throughout town
let me ask you,
meeting.
Jackie. Sorry.
Mhm.
Let me ask you a question, Jackie. Will
Yeah.
it take an active town meeting to permanently lower? So it would have to be at like a special town meeting, would have to do that. If we have a special in the fall, would have to do that to make it lowered for the spring. Is that right?
Correct. Otherwise, we will, if we don't, if there isn't a special town meeting, then for the April 25 meeting, our quorum will be 100. We won't be able
Okay.
to,
And the irony would
unless
be
I
if we didn't
said,
get quorum to lower the quorum.
yeah, unless the governor extends it, and I don't know if they will do that. So a lot of people did leave. We lost around 30 people after the Community Preservation Act vote.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, I just thought that that was quite a big difference of 70 people between the lowest vote and the highest vote. So people are coming and going. In terms of, do you guys have any questions? That was just a brief overview of the annual town meeting. I think you guys are aware of everything else. In terms of the election, we had 808 people turn out to vote. 299 of those votes were from the vote by mail ballots. We actually sent out 616 vote by mail ballots, so that only half came back. I'm pretty disappointed in that, since voting by mail is, goes right to your house, especially with 3 contested races. But anyway, so we had 3,131 voters. So that was about a 25% turnout, which is pretty typical for most of our annual town elections, anywhere from like 15 to 25% turnout on that. And that's about it. We will get refunded. It costs about 88 cents a ballot packet to mail out for the vote by mail, and the state is going to be refunding. I'll be submitting the money for the 616 votes ballot packets that we sent out, but the money that comes in will go to the general fund. It won't go back to my budget. So at least we'll get some of the money back,
Very good.
the costs associated with that.
Very good. Paul, comment.
That's
Yeah,
had
please.
some comments about town meeting and the election. First, I wanted to congratulate Marion Nucha for being reelected. Hooray. Secondly, I wanted to compliment several people for, I think, great contributions to town meeting. One of those is Stephen Sy and the presentation he did on the Community Preservation Act. It was obvious from the presentation, he put a lot of work into it, did a lot of homework, was able to answer questions that was asked by the audience, put in a lot of work, and it I think brought about the result that happened at town meeting, which was town meeting voted yes on going forward with the Community Preservation Act. So I did want to thank Steve for that. I also wanted to thank Eric Johnson, because when the recreation article was defeated by town meeting, Eric was able to pivot quickly and move favorable action on a second recreation proposal, which was much smaller in amount, but which we had not supported because we thought we were doing the bigger one. And lo and behold, the voters agreed with Eric, and we sort of saved the day for recreation. So I wanted to thank Eric for that. I wanted to thank Mary Wolf for her service as a moderator. That was her last town meeting. And as usual, she ran a good town meeting. We were able to get it all done in one day. well done, Mary, if she's listening. And finally, I wanted to thank Jeremy as the articles were being called. Jeremy was there for us, explained articles and answered questions. He provided a very professional support for what the select board wanted to get done and what advisory was trying to get done at this town meeting. So all those people, thank you for making it a good town meeting.
And I'll recognize Doug in a second, but I do want to put it back that thank you, Paul, for actually doing that agenda or the motion to put the Jameson Field back on there. Back on there. I have a question about that, but I'll ask after I recognize Doug. Yeah, Doug, go ahead, please.
A question for Jackie. Jackie, tell me more about the 616 ballots that were mailed out. Was every one of those requested? Were they sent to people because they're infirm and housebound? Like why were they sent out?
No, so we are only allowed to send out vote by mail ballots when we've received an application from someone. And the reason
Got it.
that it was so high this year was because it's a presidential year and people had, the Secretary of State had sent out those white postcards to everyone in January, and anyone that returned the white postcard and crossed off all that they wanted a vote by mail ballot for all 2024 elections automatically receives a vote by mail ballot for the town election. I could have requested the select board to opt out of vote by mail, but I didn't think that was the right thing to do. I thought it would be too confusing. I thought it was a good thing we had all those applications. I thought it was a good thing to mail out.
Once someone requests a mail out ballot, as they did, do they have to use it if they're going to vote, or can they show up at the town hall?
No, we had about 12 people show up at town hall. So what happens is on the poll pads, when they go up to the polling booth, when the election workers look them up on the poll pads, if they've requested an early vote ballot, it says requested an early vote ballot, and they are instructed to go downstairs. They need to come and see me. I need to reject their ballot that was mailed out in the state computer. And then I give them a form that I sign authorizing them to vote in person.
So does that mean their mail-in ballot is held aside and counted at the end of the night? That way it can be taken out?
Their mail-in ballot was never sent in.
No, I'm saying if let's say someone sent in a mail-in ballot, then they showed up. How do you make sure they don't vote twice?
Because when they come in every single day, when we get the ballots in the mail or when someone drops them off, we are required to update the state computer, and it says that we received their ballot and it was accepted on May 2nd or May 3rd. So it would say that, and we update the poll pads every single day with the information from the people that return their vote by mail ballot the day before. Or if we get it that day, like I said, it would say that they requested an early vote by mail ballot and they would be sent downstairs, and then I could look them up in the state system and say, we received your ballot this morning. Sorry, you can't vote again.
Great. Thanks, Jackie.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you. So I question on top of the thing that Paul was talking about before and I asked this behind the scenes, but I want to maybe ask it in public to get an answer in public. On that item, on the capital item of the Jameson Fields, where advisory recommended no action, I thought if town meeting turns down no action, then it's automatically considered. Otherwise, what's the point if they recommend no action if it doesn't automatically go to actually having it on the ballot? You know what I mean? Because it's almost like it rejects it no matter what. Then you have to make a whole special motion to get it back on. And maybe can someone explain to me like why when you reject vote down advisory's recommendation no action, it doesn't automatically have a vote for action or a vote to do? I guess Jeremy.
Yeah, so there needs to be a positive motion on the floor, Eric. So if advisory doesn't make that positive motion, or makes a negative motion is voted down, then to have it considered at town meeting, a positive motion needs to be put on the floor by someone. It's the nature of how town meeting works. There needs to be a positive motion to act on.
Is that just maybe it's my memory, bad memory. I swear I thought I remembered in past years when it was turned down, then automatically became positive motion. Maybe it's a non-fiscal article, maybe it's just reworded. You could change a word, but okay. I guess that is what it is. It kind of seems I guess
Paul,
it is what it is. That's all.
Could you
Yeah.
maybe add a little more detail to what I said, Paul?
Yeah, I was going to say that
Mhm.
the positive motion may not be exactly the same as what's printed in the warrant. So that's why it's not automatic. I mean, let's say there's an appropriation for 100,000. Advisory recommends no action. No action is defeated, but you may want to make a motion for 50,000 or 75,000 or 30,000. There may be a positive motion different from what is in the warrant. That's why there needs to be a positive motion. That's why it's not an automatic. If you defeat this, then automatically you're presenting what's in the warrant.
And looking at what you drafted, I mean, and stated at the meeting, the motion, it was more different than I thought it was going to be. It was, and maybe we should have those ready to go. I don't know. It just seemed cumbersome. That's all. But I guess it is what it is. Okay. Without that, I'm just going to move on to item number 3. Consideration of appointment to the Farm Pond Advisory Committee. We have Caitlin Sullivan as an associate member for a term to expire June 15th, 2023.
Do you want a motion?
Caitlin. Well, actually,
Caitlin's,
do you want to make a statement?
Caitlin's here,
Say
Eric, yeah.
Yep. No, I see it right there.
Yes, I can do a quick introduction. So, obviously I'm Caitlin. I grew up, in Natick and went to school at UMass Amherst at the Eisenberg School. So pretty local. I moved to Sherborn a year and a half ago from moving, downtown Boston, where I work in financial services. I work for State Street Corporation. So there's limited, community service I can do within the town, given my role at State Street, but was interested in really getting more involved with the town. It was important to my parents growing up in Natick. My mom was on all these boards, so kind of wanted to get involved in some capacity. And why I selected Sherborn over Dover, other surrounding towns, was because of Farm Pond. I am outdoor activist. I love biking, swimming. I have a mooring on Farm Pond. That was kind of my welcome gift I got from family to the town. So it's really important for me, and learning about the declining water quality conditions at the pond was a little bit devastating. I have a family friend who lives on the pond, and hearing about that, I thought maybe this is an opportunity for me to step in and really help out and volunteer to monitor the water clarity, take the measurements, and learn more about the cyanobacteria and the phosphorus levels, et cetera, everything that's going on with the pond. So reached out to a couple folks, and then got connected with Kath, and I've been joining a couple of the meetings and volunteering, taking the measurements. So was looking to join the advisory committee.
That's excellent. Thank you for volunteering for your time. Thank you very much. Any question? Yeah, Paul.
So can I make the motion?
Please do.
So I move that we appoint Caitlin Sullivan as an associate member of the Farm Pond Advisory Committee for a term to expire June 15, 2026.
27. I think it's supposed to be 27. I think the agenda, I don't know if there was a markup in the agenda.
Yes,
Is that right,
it's
Diane?
the 27th. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, sorry, I'm reading
2027. I forgot to
from
change
the
the
agenda.
batch. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
All right, do we have a
Second.
second by Stephen. All right, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I am also aye. Thank you very much, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, on annual appointments to take place at the June 13th select board meeting. Diane Morris.
Hi, Eric. Yes, I just wanted to give the board a copy of the letter that I mailed out to all the boards and committees back in March, letting them know of the members that were due up for reappointment. I gave you a copy of that letter and the application. They are coming in. We have some new appointments coming forward this year. And I'm happy to report that we have somebody that's interested in the vacancy on the Board of Assessors. He looks like a very good candidate. He's been speaking with Wendy Alessi, the assessor for the town. And next week, I hope to bring a packet to the select board. I'll mail it out of all the applications that have come in, so you can review them ahead of time, because I'd like to bring them forward to a meeting in June to have them appointed.
Who created the vacancy on the assessors?
That was, we used it, same one from last year, but it had been looked at by the assessor, and she approved it, the wording of it.
No, I mean, why is there a vacancy? Who left the board?
I'm sorry. Drew Kashal, who was elected, decided not to seek election again this year. So that
He
left that
told me
seat
he
vacant.
would, that jerk.
He changed his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Drew did good time on how long was
He
he?
did.
He was on for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
and,
great.
And
he did a couple
and
of
he was
terms
on
there.
he was an assessor, and then he was advisory for 3 years, and then he went back to the assessors. So
Yeah, he did his time, call it
he's
that.
done his time.
Marion.
Yeah, thanks to Drew. He did a great job. I recall there was a discussion at a recent town meeting as to whether one of the assessor positions would have to be filled by a member of the town, if anyone is so prepared. And so what about is this the town resident position?
Yes, it is. And actually, the gentleman that applied is a resident of Sherborn
Oh, great.
with a big finance background. So,
Good to know. Thanks.
yes.
And to clarify, there's a provision if you couldn't find a qualified person, then you could go outside.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else on that, Diane? Do we call that?
Just wanted to give the board a quick update. That's all.
Okay, very good. All right, item number 5, discussion regarding specialist for employee designations. Jeremy.
Thank you, Eric. So there is a current request before you to add the position of food and camp inspector to your list. In looking at the list, so this is a list of special municipal employees that one is approved by the select board, that positions that are on this list have not all of the state's conflict of interest requirements apply to them. They have some relaxation of those rules because of the nature of the positions. Therefore, it does require the select board to approve such designations, to have them on file with the town clerk, also provide them to the State Ethics Commission. When this current request came up, we looked, and it appears the last time the select board considered the list, or at least the list that was on file with the town clerk, was from 2013. So thought it would be certainly timely, or maybe past time, for the board to consider some of the various positions that are on here, and to consider adding the food and camp inspector. Some of the positions that were included as of 2013 included your fire chief, which at the time I think was a part-time fire chief. Now you have a full-time fire chief, so you may want to remove that position. There's a number of, you have a full-time fire lieutenant as well. There's various commissions and committees that are no longer in existence that could remove from the list. So just wanted to get your thoughts on updating what we could do if you wanted to take action tonight about adding that current position, current request. But we would like to get your input and go back. If you would like, go back to the various commissions and bring back for you an updated list based on your input.
Any comments on the board? Yeah, Paul.
So the policy of the board has been to only act on these requests when someone comes forward and asks for it. So that's worked well, because there's no need to give people things that they don't need and are not asking for. But when someone sees that they have a conflict and comes forward and asks for it, then in the past, the board has looked at that position and made a determination. And I've looked at the request that's currently before the board. It is typically the kind of request that we have routinely granted in the past. And I don't see any reason not to grant it now. So I am inclined to make a motion to approve his specific request. So those are my two comments.
I would say it's also appropriate, looking at the list before us, to tonight strike anyone, person or committee from this list that either is no longer eligible or no longer in existence. I think if we want to consider adding, new committees that have formed since this list was refreshed, we can do that at a future meeting. But tonight, I would at least remove from the list anybody that's not eligible or that no longer exists.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
That happens automatically by law. In other words, you're not giving special municipal employee status to any individual. You're giving it to everybody holding a position. So if there's a committee, everybody on that committee are made specials. If the committee no longer exists, then by operational law, that special designation applies to no one. The same thing with the fire chief. You cannot be a special if you work more than 800 hours a year. If he's working more than 800 hours, by definition, he cannot be a special employee. So by operational law, that happens. But I certainly agree with you. It makes sense from a housekeeping point of view, so people know, sure, we got to delete committees that are no longer in existence. Anybody who's working more than 800 hours should automatically come off. I agree with that. But I'm saying there's no crises here because it works automatically by statute.
So, and I get that. So by law, it doesn't, their status changes automatically. For our books, does it help at all to vote to clean this up? Because we're always going to have a full-time fire chief. I don't ever see us not having a full-time fire chief. Do we need any vote or any action on our part just to simply clean up administratively? Or could just simply, since it doesn't happen, can Jeremy just remove it off whatever list is on?
No, I think what Stephen Tsai said was a good idea, that we should, and what you're suggesting, yeah, we should delete names of people. It's just sometimes in other communities when they've done that, then you have people coming in saying, what happened? Why wasn't I notified? Am I screwed? Do I need to resign? Actually, in one community had somebody resign thinking that we did something to them and they can no longer hold the job. So there's all kinds of communication issues with suddenly taking the fire chief and sending him a note saying, oh, by the way, you're no longer a special municipal employee. I certainly don't want the fire chief to resign or thinking that we fired him because we did this action. So given what I've seen in other communities, most communities leave things alone, and the old cliche, let sleeping dogs lie, rather than go through all the work that's necessary to explain this and what are we doing and why and how does it affect their employment and blah blah blah. That's a fair amount of work, and that's going to fall on Jeremy to do.
And that's what I was suggesting, Paul, that if you'd like me to do that, I'm happy to do that and go through this list and speak to the individuals involved in the committees, and then bring back a clean list for your kind of ratification or approval at a later date.
We can do that.
Yeah,
I like that idea. Looks like you have the clerk, you have the fire chief, and you may have some new committees. Who knows?
Collector of taxes, there's several positions here that we can clean up, and some committees as well. So I think, before you tonight is just the one action to consider adding the food and camp inspector to this list.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor. Stephen,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
and Paul.
Aye.
I am I as well. Okay, very good. Thank you, Jeremy. Let me catch up a little bit. Back on the town here. Okay, next up, is it the Odessa one? Yeah, it is. Okay. Establish a special revenue fund under section 53K of chapter 44 of the general laws of the Commonwealth for Odessa special permit funds.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
So at the closeout of the 2023 supplemental budget, the State House did some updates to municipal finance law. This being one, the statute that Eric just mentioned was added to allow mitigation funds such as those received from Odessa to be placed in a special revenue account at the discretion of the select board of the community. So it would be a vote of the select board to authorize the town accountant to set up such a special account. It's not, you're not obligated to, but it's an option for you. In the past, these funds were not eligible to go into a special revenue account, and they therefore fell to the general fund as general revenue. But with that update of Mass General Law in December of this past year, you now have that an option to account for it differently. It's somewhat timely now in that those funds from Odessa generally come at the beginning of the fiscal year. So sometime in early July, we generally receive those funds. The funds are based on the special permit that was issued by the planning board. And in that special permit, condition number 2 kind of sets the amount of the mitigation payment, and it's based on the cost of 8 4-hour police details per month in that area of the community. It goes on to say such funds shall be used for such police details, or if directed by the Board of Selectmen, for the design and or construction of traffic calming and or traffic safety and or pedestrian improvements measures on Western Ave, or such other streets impacted by Odessa traffic as they may deem appropriate. So in previous years, finance law prevented these funds from going into a special account. At this past spring town meeting did appropriate free cash to do some improvements on Western Ave. However, going forward, the select board, the town has the option to have these funds segregated for that specific use.
Marion, you have a question?
Yeah, it's not a question, just a comment. I mean, this allows us to finally bring our rules for how we handle the money from Odessa in line with the special permit. Up until now, it's been in conflict with the special permit because special permit designates the funds for a specific purpose, and having a separate fund really facilitates that. So.
And I'm reading through the link right now.
Can I add
Sorry.
something to that, to what Marion
Yeah.
stated? I think it has been revenue to the general fund, which has helped offset the operations of the police department, which does do traffic enforcement along Western Ave. So I think we've been in the spirit of the use of the payments, but not specifically segregating the accounting.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I'll tell you, I'm a little split on this myself a little bit. I mean, right now we're strapped revenue into the general fund, but I'm not looking to make this an inappropriate revenue. I want to, if we spend things appropriately, in some ways, my 2 thoughts. One, if it goes into a revolving fund, then it's set and you don't exceed that on traffic calming and so on. Like, if it goes in the general fund, you have more flexibility. I don't want to do the wrong thing and not spend what we're supposed to spend on these traffic calming and so on like that. But I also like the flexibility, and you do when you need to, and especially like the police aren't going to document, oh, I spent so many hours on Western Ave and this and that, but you got to pass a straight face test. I'm somewhat inclined not to put this into a special fund, but I'd be interested in more if there's any more discussion here.
So who decides how the funds are expended out of this special revenue fund? Like, what's the process for using the money?
I believe it would be the select board who would then authorize its expenditure.
So this would bypass town meeting effectively. That's one thing that gives me pause is yes, this money is set aside for, a range of specific purposes, but not for like a specific project. And so it can get spent just by this body without a town meeting vote. So that gives me a little bit of pause. So that's one of my initial thoughts. I think Sean has an opinion on that, looks like.
Well, before I recognize, Paul raised his hand a couple times. I do want to recognize Paul.
Yes. So I've been on the board when we've tried to spend this money in the past. And we wanted to do it on things like a sidewalk on Maple Street to connect essentially Town Hall with Western Avenue. And we had essentially exclusive jurisdiction over the funds. We were the only spending authority then, and we should be the only spending authority now under the special revenue fund idea. And it's intended to be broader than just police details. Police details are one thing that could help mitigate traffic on Western Avenue, but not the only thing. And things like sidewalks, things like traffic calming devices. And I believe in the past we have used the money for traffic calming features on Western Avenue. I want to keep the flexibility. This special revenue fund does maintain that flexibility because it will allow us to spend the money and we don't have to have it go to a town meeting vote. It's just cleaner all the way around. So I would support this idea as a continuation of the way we used to do things before it had to go to the general fund. The distinction I'm making is in the old days, we never had to go to the general fund. The select board spent it. And then we got into this business that funds being received by the town needed to go to the general fund. This fixes it and brings us back to the flexibility that we had, which I think is important to maintain, because if there's something that needs to be done to help the people in Western Avenue, we should be able to do it.
All right, let
And
me
as far
recognize.
as-
Sorry.
Just one other point. We spend Chapter 90 funds for roadway improvements that can be used on sidewalks, drainage, all kinds of things without a town meeting vote. And the state has set that up because traffic improvements often need to be done on times different than the town meeting cycle. And it's important for public safety. So the default position is that these kind of road improvements don't need town meeting votes. So I'm not troubled by the fact that there's no town meeting vote over a $20,000 item.
All right, let me recognize Sean, please. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I hesitated to comment, but the reference to circumventing town meeting vote, I needed to comment. The spirit of that permit was never that these expenditures would go to town meeting. So that, you know, you certainly don't go to town meeting to ask to spend money on police details or enforcement. And it shouldn't be likewise if we're going to spend some of the revenues that we've been hanging on to for decades now on some traffic calming or other measures, whether it be Western Ave or somewhere else. I think this board is well capable to opine on that. And I think we should. It's a high threshold to take things to town meeting in front of the entire town and discuss revenues that came in on a permit that affects only part of the town, not just Western Ave, but only, you know, part of the town. So we did it this year, but it was after nearly a decade since the last time we did it. So I would urge you to lower that threshold and bring it back to this board and keep it segregated. It's also very difficult to track. I know it sounds like it's easy to just track the receipts, but years go by and we don't spend any of the money and it kind of just disappeared for a while. Thanks.
Okay, Doug Kinsley, please go ahead.
It sounds like the conversation here is mostly about the threshold of spending. So I heard a comment from someone that, $20,000 shouldn't go to the town meeting. I'm not going to debate that. It seems to me that at a much higher level, it should go to town meeting. And by way of analogy, there are other funds in town. I think everybody on the board is probably aware of the errors and deficiency fund of the school committee. The school committee voted last week to spend $1 million of that money on capital projects, which were never discussed at the town meeting. So I think if you're setting up a fund like this, you absolutely have to have some dollar threshold or maximum amount of money that you're spending.
Okay. Thank you. There's one question I had here, and if I'm reading this correctly, it talks about that if we have a special project that requires more money, we can go back to Odessa. Someone tell me if I'm reading that correctly. Calming and traffic safety improvement project has been designed and approved by the selectmen, and additional funds are needed to implement the project. The selectmen may direct the applicant, that's Odessa, to make additional payment in the amount sufficient to complete the project. In no case shall the payments for police details maximum monthly. I wonder if that'd be easier to go after that additional money if this was essentially a separate fund. One of my issues is that you can't track everything. The police doing law enforcement out there and so on like that are approximate. We're starved for revenue going into the general fund in general, but I know we can't make this a profit center out of it. I worry about us spending more than we pull in. And I think having us go into a special want to keep us from spending more than what we have going into it. I'm split on the whole town meeting thing because Chapter 90, of course, that's how it's set up by the state, and the select board has been good stewards of that. But I obviously was kind of the outlier in how we spent the COVID funds. I voted to stay in line in some cases there, but frankly, I thought we should have spent it on items that town meeting had approved, and the board went a different direction and spent it on, different projects and stuff like that. So before I recognize anyone else, can someone tell me if I'm reading this correctly? And it's a big paragraph, paragraph 2. If we have a project and we can't afford to do it, what's in that fund, we can ask Odessa for additional funds. Am I reading that correctly? And maybe I'll recognize Marianne while someone reads it and interprets it for me, but that's how I'm reading it. Marianne, you can go ahead.
I think you are reading it correctly, Eric. And I don't think that aspect of the special permit has ever been acted upon because it's rather open-ended and vague. I think it's a difficult part of this agreement actually because it's not specific enough. But I would also say that I think having a special fund kind of keeps the issue on the radar screen for the planning board as well as the select board. We're seeing a lot of 9-car carriers now on Coolidge Street, Main Street. It's not just Western Ave. And these funds will allow monitoring basically and police details where we need them, just not only on Western Ave. I think we need more flexibility than town meeting will provide and more time flexibility than town meeting would provide. So I'm in favor of the change.
Yeah, Paul.
So back in the day when I was on the planning board, the idea that someone had was to rebuild that portion of Western Avenue in a way that trucks could not turn right on exiting. And that was more expensive than A, the town wanted to do, and B, that Odessa wanted to do. And the compromise was this language. And in the meantime, we had them put up some Jersey barriers so that it would start with like a chute directing traffic to the left and not to the right. Right meaning going south on Western Avenue into Sherborn. the idea was to force those carriers, because of their size and bulk and everything else, to go north. That's what that was the genesis of the language. It was an unsolved issue, so we kicked the can down the road.
And those Jersey barriers, they are there. They are still there to this. I mean, I will say that, you know, I observe carriers still going through Sherborn. It does happen. What enforcement is, and we talk about that some other thing. But yeah, most don't, and I think it's been reasonably successful. Marion?
Yeah, I agree, Eric. It has been reasonably successful, especially on Western Ave, where the big problem now is dump trucks and trash trucks. But as far as the directing applicants as the special permit, directing, I should say, drivers as the special permit describes, it's been very hard for ADESA to control incoming drivers because they're using GPS. And even after having been there once, they're still using GPS, and they don't always keep someone at the gate. This is a very, very hard thing to be on top of all the time because it's a daily problem. So, I mean, just in general, I think we need some flexibility.
And I'll tell you, I'll be honest here. I'm kind of borderline, even on the planning board. I sometimes recuse myself. I would recuse myself on the complete permit. So I just want to stick it to the fund. But I'll say this is something which is probably impossible to enforce. The special permit actually says shall not do business with. It says they'll hand maps out to the drivers and so on like that. But there's no truck exclusion on Western Ave, and it is a public road. And frankly, I think, you know, Sherborn's lucky to get what they have with this. So
Yeah,
that's my
I
quick
agree.
little comment to realize those lines. Yeah. So all that being said, does anyone have any last minute thoughts on whether this should be, and this we call special fund, it's a revolving fund, is that right, Jeremy? It's basically, it comes in and you need it and it accrues over fiscal years and stuff like that.
It's similar. It's not technically a revolving fund in that there's no limit set at town meeting. It's based on the revenue that you receive for this purpose.
So can I make a motion to?
That was my next question, is if there's a limit or not. If it can go, we can sometimes accrue as high as we want and spend on something big. We can accrue it on, like, you know, put like permanent islands in Western Ave or something like that. That actually was my next question there.
That's correct.
Okay.
So could I make a motion to?
Can I ask one more question?
That-
You can make a motion. I know I can discuss it. You've told me that before. You go ahead and make the motion how you want to do it. And I'm going to ask another question before I ask for a second.
I can hold
You can
off.
make the motion.
It's just some boards like to have a motion on the floor, like a town meeting. First, you have to have a motion before you discuss an article. So I'm used to both, whatever you want.
My last one is, and we're pretty flexible. This can be used outside of Western Ave. Imagine if it passes a straight face test that, like, it might be impacted by truck traffic. That's reasonably true as well.
Yeah, that's in the wording of the special permit. Measures on Western Ave or such other streets impacted by ADESA traffic as may be deemed appropriate.
And I'm just looking for the language, and we must spend the money on something along those lines. There's no flexibility, and I only ask that because, again, it's input into the general fund, which we are kind of sparse on.
Sorry,
Like, if I added,
I can read the requirements again. So
Yeah,
right from condition number 2 of the special permit, it says such funds shall be used for such police details, or if directed by the Board of Selectmen, for the design and or construction of traffic calming and or traffic safety and or pedestrian improvement measures on Western Ave or such other streets impacted by ADESA traffic as they may deem appropriate.
and if we did details, the details would be paid by the fund and so on. That'd be a little administrative headache versus doing the general fund or whatever else. And it does say shall in there, so I'm really fine either way, to be honest. I don't have a strong feeling on this. Okay, Paul, I'll recognize you for a motion.
Move to establish a special revenue fund under Chapter 53K of Chapter 44 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth for receipt and expenditure of funds received from ADESA as a condition of the special permit granted by the Planning Board.
I second.
Before I collect the vote, I'm just gonna informally ask us, Stephen, I don't know if you have any before I collect your vote. Any other thoughts on it? Because you kind of spoke on it a little bit. And...
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still have the same reservation about the fact that it is a fund where only the select board has the authority to spend it. You know, I mean, on the one hand, I recognize that it's not like every $20,000 project you want to have to go to town meeting to do, right? But effectively, what's been happening is that some amount of road work happens over there, some amount of police detail happens over there, and that gets reflected in the DPW and the police department budgets, right? And those budgets go through town meeting, right? They go through advisory, they go through us, and it goes through the standard review. And some amount of money is set aside for police details, right? And we know that the police are going to spend the money on the police details. And you can just kind of say, well, if there was a police detail that happened over on Western Avenue, then you know that was paid for by Odessa, you know. On the other hand, I recognize that the spirit of the establishment of this whole thing was that Odessa would be paying money to the town for a particular purpose, and that we may not have been specifically functioning in keeping with that spirit. And I do think that if we can sort of you know, we happen to currently be in a situation where we have this money and it has no strings attached because it just goes into the general fund, and nobody can possibly track what's actually happening with it. And you know, as the advisory committee member in me kind of likes that, because it's like that's simply money into the large pot, and it's helping. I mean, it's a little bit over a penny off of the tax rate, basically. So you know, that part of it I would prefer to keep how it is, but I recognize that it isn't really in keeping with the spirit of the whole purpose of why this was spent and why Odessa gives us money. So I think that reestablishing this mechanism that ideally will actually accomplish what it was meant to do, I think is reasonable. So so I do think that I am going to vote in favor of it.
Now, I will tell you more to support your previous point. So in FY25, it's projected at 28,800, almost 30,000, and you can bank it. So you bank it for 5 years and looking at $150,000 capital appropriation, which would very much be a town meeting, just so you know, just to become aware. So it's not just $20,000 here and there. It's not just police details. That this literally could be a 150, 200,000, depends how many years you want to bank it, and with the price going up, could be a very easily a 6-figure capital appropriation approved by a different board you see sitting in front of you. It'll be Paul and 4 other people. So just
yeah. No, I mean,
So-
honestly, that does worry me. That worries me that in you know, every 5 years there could be a 6-figure, essentially, you know, capital roadworks project that is just happening without any town meeting, capital budget, or advisory input, you know.
On the other hand, sorry, I should put up my hand.
I see you.
I've been talking without putting up my hand, so Eric can he can chastise me for that if he wants, but
Next year we'll have more control.
Steve, I thought you had talked yourself into it then, and then I guess not. On the other hand, the other side of that is that right now, nobody's really keeping track of where this money's going, which is really not in the spirit of the special permit. So with my old planning board hat pulled out, I prefer to have it in a designated fund that does have some oversight and certainly is not going to accumulate indefinitely, because we have plenty of potential road work, sidewalk, safety projects that are related to trucks in some way on town roads. So I don't know. I think I like to know where this money's going, and I think it's better to have a special fund to be able to track it.
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah, Paul.
The history of the town has been that when we are doing a substantial project, we actually do bring it to town meeting, even for funding components that aren't necessarily town meeting appropriations. Like when we were doing this roundabout, the last article really wasn't necessary from the point of view of the funding because we were using state grants, we were using Chapter 90 funds. All those components did need a town meeting vote, but the board felt a project of that size and that impact on the community ought to go back to town meeting for another vote. And I'm sure Sean will say, wait a second, there already was a town meeting vote before, this is the second town meeting vote. But the fact is, we felt responsibly, we should present the big project to the town to make sure that everybody was on board with it. And with that precedent, I would say my response to Eric would be, we're likely to do that in the future. And so if there really was, if we really did bank this money and we had the accumulated money, it was going to be part of a big project, I'm pretty comfortable thinking that it would be presented to town meeting anyway.
Before I recognize Sean, I just want to say something. That's it. The one thing I always believe in, though, we have to counter against a different board. Now, I don't know. This is a great board, and I love this board. Well, you know, like you guys a lot. And
Shucks.
I just I worry about it. I mean, I've lived in this town long enough, and my family lives in this town long enough. I've seen a lot of boards come and go and this and that. And I just like to have I understand why this, you know, checks and balances are set up. Yeah, and just like I said, so I still have to worry about this board I have confidence in, but this is one of those things that's in perpetuity. Yeah, Sean. And you're muted.
I can't comment on future boards of selectmen, but I mean, you have to have faith in yourself in that if you don't feel like you're vetted a project well enough, first of all, you guys single-handedly vote on no less than $260,000 worth of road work a year, more like $500,000, because the town meeting just does the appropriation. You guys vote on the actual projects every year. And if you didn't feel comfortable with it, you could kick it back to the capital budget committee just to review it. But you have to have faith in something, because town meeting can't review every single project that may come down the pike.
That's true. Good point. All right. I think I've heard enough. I know what direction I want to go. So Paul put a motion on there. Marion, you seconded it, didn't you?
I did.
Create this fund or whatever. Okay. I usually go in a certain order of the hierarchy, but I'm going to change the order a little bit here just to make suspense.
Mix
How
it
do you
up.
vote, Marion? There you go, clerk, vice chair, clerk, whatever I need to, whatever members, but I'm going to
That
mix it
mean
up
I'm
here.
on the top or the bottom? Anyway, I'm for it. Yes.
Okay, yes. Paul?
Aye. Also, yes.
All right, Stephen?
Aye.
All right, I am as well. I was on the fence as well. It's pretty obvious, though. I think Jeff and I do the same thing. So we'll go to like vice chair, clerk, and then whoever like shows up first or whatever, I put you guys in order, you know what I mean? So it's usually Marianne or Paul or whoever's on there. All right. Oh, that was a good, healthy discussion. Let me find my agenda. Okay, agenda item number 7. Consider petition to the general court for special legislation to allow the town to convert one license for the sale of beer and wine and malt beverages not to be drunk on premises to a license for the sale of all alcoholic beverages not to be drunk on premises. It's for Art Specialties, 11 South Main Street. Is Jeannie speaking to that, or who's speaking to this?
I can help, Eric. So
Okay,
town
sorry.
meeting authorized the select board to file this special legislation. So in the spirit of the request, I worked with town council to draft the special legislation that's in your packet. There's also a draft letter, a transmittal letter to Representative Marina DeRosa. And the next step would be for the select board to endorse the draft special legislation and authorize this the chair to sign the transmittal to get this off to the State House.
So
All right,
you're ready?
a quick little just a quick little administrative question. He said authorize the chair. Would Jeff sign it because he's not here? Would I have to sign it just so I know if I got to show up? No, we can ask Chris.
There's no urgency behind this because the legislature is going to be adjourning on July 31st, and this
Okay.
getting there this week or next week isn't gonna make much difference. This is gonna be a next year's bill.
Okay.
So Jeff can sign it whenever he comes back.
All right. So
Anyway, I move we approve the language and authorize the chair, or in his absence, the vice chair, to sign the letter and present it to the general court.
any
This-
discussion or seconds?
I have a question.
Yep.
This is a license that could be transferred to another business in the future, right? This is
Yes,
license
Correct.
that the town holds basically to allow a certain number. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah, it's similar to a regular, like any other liquor license. Like when a business is sold, it's sold with the license. So if someone comes in and buys arts, they buy the license with it. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion or seconds? We don't have a second yet. We have a second or further discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay. Using the traditional order, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
I,
Paul?
hi.
I am as well. Yep. I'll say that one resoundingly passed on meeting as well. Minimal discussion. So we're very proud to support Sherborn businesses. All right. Coming down to it, we have the consent agenda. Have before
Move
you.
approval.
All right.
Second.
And second. Very good. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
I,
And Paul?
Hi.
I am I as well. Thank you. Any select board reports?
I've got one.
Okay.
So last night we wrapped up the negotiations with the Unit B of the teachers union, the education assistants. So we came to an agreement last night, and hopefully that will get ratified by the EA unit. I think they were aiming for by the end of May 29th, I think. And then the next regional school committee meeting it was either June 11 or June 13. One of those is us, one of those is them. I don't remember, but hopefully they were going to approve it in that June meeting. So,
Okay. Did the negotiations go okay for the most part, or?
yeah, I mean, I think it only took 4 meetings, of which the first one was basically just an introductory one. So only 3 meetings with me. We went pretty late last night because we kind of sensed that we were close to finishing it up. So, we ended at like 9:30 or something like that.
Okay, very good. Well, and thank you for being involved with that.
Sure.
Oh, I understand. You're doing the graduation, correct?
Yeah, supposedly.
Good luck.
Thanks. I had forgotten about that, but thanks.
No problem. All right, good luck. Any other select board reports? Okay, moving on to that. Town administrator reports. Oh, we have a good menu of them here.
Thank you, Eric.
Go ahead.
Going forward, I'm going to try to have sort of a listing of known town administrator reports on your agenda, just to give you a little preview of what I may be talking about. The first is an update on regional school committee capital projects. Late last week, the school administration's the superintendent's office called and informed us at the regional school committee's meeting of May 7th that they voted to reallocate some funds towards various capital projects. And so I wanted to, ensure that the board was aware of that. The school committee moved to transfer $655,000 in excess deficiency funds to the regional's capital fund to cover the costs for approved capital projects as presented in the presentation materials to the regional school committee. And they also voted to reallocate $350,000 of approved capital funding from the high school boiler project to the high school rooftop unit project. So knowing that this is related to the regional schools and the agreement between the communities, just wanted to ensure that the select board was aware of the regional school committee's vote.
Can I ask
And,
a quick question about that?
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen, and I have a question as well. Mhm.
Yeah, the 350,000 that was for the boiler project, was that a capital item that we approved for borrowing for debt service?
So that project had been on the region's capital program. However, previously it was removed from the plan presented to town meeting because the region voted to use excess and deficiency funds to fund
I
it. So
see.
that 350,000 that was reallocated, it's our understanding that the funding source was E&D funds.
So all of it is E&D essentially. Okay.
That's our understanding.
All right, thanks.
Now, do we allocate capital funds? A school committee can do that without authorization at town meetings. I thought that, if it comes from similar funds or whatever, I mean, I'm used to like some enterprise funds that you'd actually have to still do town meetings approval to reauthorize. But the school committee can do that on their own.
I think when the region uses E&D, they don't need town approval because the E&D money is their money. It's not our money. If they need us to borrow money if they need either the town to put up its free cash or to borrow for the project, then it needs town meeting. But if they're using E&D, that's essentially like the town deciding to use free cash for a capital item. So it's not a borrowing issue.
Well, it looks like my question initiated some more questions.
We should also be careful that this doesn't turn into a big discussion because even though it's on the agenda, I don't think it's on the agenda as a topic of discussion for the select board.
No, that is true. It's a town administrator report, and there's some limits on the discussion we have. We certainly can't vote on anything. I do know that. So I'm going to ask people to make short comments as long as it stays informative in the spirit of a town administrator report. So if you have questions for us, we probably will not answer them, limit them, but just stay in the spirit that this is a report. So I'll start with Doug.
Apparently the school committee mentioned that the town has to approve this use of the E&D funds. Is that true or not?
If
Historically, I don't believe. I mean, Paul, you might know the real answer, but historically, when the region has used E&D to fund projects, they have not come to the town for approval for those.
All right.
There was a mention of 45 days to approve it. That's not a thing. No, why would the person say that?
It's the other way around,
What does that mean?
that it's effective unless within 45 days we call a special town meeting and town meeting votes no.
Okay. If this is important enough, we can't at our next meeting actually make an agenda item to actually have a true discussion. I am cautious on the amount of discussion we have and amount of we answer here. Offline, if you want to go to and we can make an agenda item, you can maybe ask the town administrator and we can actually look into it a bit more. I don't want to have too much back and forth here in the spirit of it being a report. So we do know in the report that they allocated these funds. Let me ask, does anyone know, was this at a school, is this school committee meeting recorded somewhere where people can review it and look at some of the stuff?
Yes, it is. It was a regular scheduled regional school committee meeting. I believe their agenda packet and supporting information is also on the school region's website. But I think it's on the YouTube stream if folks would like to watch it.
Let me direct people to that, and then if you want, maybe we can discuss it at the next meeting, which ironically I can't attend on the 30th. We can actually have a more hardcore item if we think that there's going to be quite a bit more on this. Doug, did you have something? Maybe one more quick. Again, the spirit of it being a report.
Just really quick question for the select board is it your view that the school committee should be able to unilaterally spend $1 million+ without you or the advisory committee or the town meeting having any say over it? Is that the way this town is working right now?
And
That's
I
not a
encourage the
facetious
board.
question,
I encourage the
serious.
board. Well, I don't think we should up that. Let's look at the background material. We can make a real agenda item on this and have a dialogue, a philosophical, open-ended question like that, where we don't even have a packet in our material with the background material and how they vote. I'm going to ask the board not to opine on that. So it's a dialogue that, again, is against the spirit of a select board report or whatever this is, a town administrator report in that thing.
Can we put it on the next meeting for discussion?
Yeah, approach Jeremy and Jeff. So Jeff is the chair of the next meeting, and we'll put the background material We'll put it in there and we can actually look at it and give a thoughtful dialogue about it.
Great, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Sean, you got something?
Yeah, I hung on because that's exactly what I was gonna ask. I'm certain that if I was $1 million over budget on a couple of projects, not just this committee, advisory, capital budget, and every committee in 01770 would have my tail. And I think it's incumbent on this board at least to throw an agenda item out there and ask that the superintendent and the business manager show up and explain how they did that, because this came up almost in every capital budget and advisory meeting that I was at this year and last year. They compared everything we were doing as a town with what the region did. So it was predictable that this was going to happen. And I urge this board to at least ask why this came up the week after town meeting.
I will encourage Jeff to put this on the next, it's a shame I can't make that meeting, but I will encourage Jeff to put this on the next agenda, especially if there is some kind of time limit there or whatever. Nora?
I concur with Sean. Thank you. Please put it on the agenda for next meeting.
I'm betting it's going to be on the agenda. And probably that's a start. Like I said, gathering whatever background material, and maybe put an email out, Jeremy, just to the group to say like, which meeting it is, and maybe a link to it or something, and we can even if you don't mind, even like when it's on, we can go look at and we'll catch a discussion. I think it sounds like something worthwhile.
Yeah, one more comment, not a deliberation. Do you think the finance director of the regional schools and maybe a member of the school committee should be in on that discussion? I think it would be good to have them there for fact purposes.
I think it's certainly worth inviting them.
Mhm.
See if they come. I think it's certainly worth inviting them. All right, keep on going, Jeremy. You're that was a pretty good for your first of 5 bullets on the select board reports.
I'll try to move along quicker.
That's not your fault.
Next update, we had a great meeting with some folks from the city of Framingham, their city planner, Herb Nolan of the Solomon Foundation, Robert Wolf of our community, and a few other folks. It was to announce that the Solomon Foundation is going to be contracting a feasibility study for a rail with trail connection from Whitney Street north into Framingham. That's about a 2-mile stretch that this feasibility study would cover. It would prepare a base plan, do some site analysis, create alternative alignments, and that draft, they hope to have a consultant begin in June and have a draft of that feasibility study available for the public to opine on later this summer, sometime in August. A study like this would help advocacy for grants and state funding to complete that rail trail connection. So wanted to relay that news. We've heard from the local delegation, the Senator Roush's office, Representative Marina DeRosa's office. They've been able to put in the draft FY25 budget, some amendments to benefit Sherborn. Senator Roush's office has included $50,000 for water quality and infrastructure improvements in Sherborn. And Representative Marina DeRosa's office has included $25,000 for safety and lighting improvements to Woodhaven Elder Housing. So hopefully those stick within the state budget as it moves forward. And now some updates on Washington and Maple Street, and I invite Sean to chime in after I give a quick summary on any more details. The contractor has mobilized and has started stockpiling materials near the intersection. They've started excavation for subsurface drainage. So there's a fair amount of work happening in the lawn in front of the library, in front of town hall, near the intersection. That's going to be where a subsurface stormwater drainage system is going to be installed that will help control runoff and improve stormwater quality. That's outside of the roadway, so currently there's no direct impacts to traffic. However, starting June 17th, the intersection will be closed and a detour put in place. And then the work on the intersection will begin in earnest for the construction of the roundabout. And hopefully completed and open to traffic, reopen to traffic in mid-August. It's certainly going to be done well before school opening. There's a news alert that's been distributed to folks. There's information on the town's website. The direct abutters to the project, Sean did deliver letters directly to them, so they've gotten direct communication. And also wanted to know some of the features of the project. We've asked the contractor to put together a mock sample of what they will look like. Specifically, there's around the roundabout, there's sloped granite curbing that contains the landscaped area, but just outside of that, there's an area where trucks can travel, but vehicles are not supposed to travel. That would be of a different color and texture. And that's currently proposed to be a stamped colored concrete with various texture. So we're asking them to put together ahead of doing that work, a sample mock-up so that we could all see what it would look like before it's fully
want to see
installed.
that.
So
I want to chime
we
in
will
on
make
that.
sure that you're aware of when that's completed, and we'll invite you all out to take a look to make sure that we're all comfortable with what that may look like. Sean, anything more to add?
Yeah, before Eric chimes in on the stamped concrete, I was gonna better define that as the option of red brick stamped or a mock cobble look. So obviously gray. The gray can be a two-tone. It is a two-tone. The red is basically just one monotone red with a stamp pattern.
But there
Those
can be
Nora?
variations in that color. So I think regardless of what is chosen, it'll be good to see an actual installation. So you're comfortable with what it's going to look like going forward.
And if you want, just go to either Framingham or Wellesley and look at the different tones of red between them. Nora, did you have something on that?
I did. I'm putting my Sherborn Garden Club hat on in the island that's currently there on Sanger Street. Sean, Margot had a great idea and she's on this call. We need help transplanting those plants that are perennials and the daffodils that we've done over the years and maintained, especially in me, to put them somewhere else on town property. Margot, if you're listening, I think that's you there, maybe towards the police station or that extra property. Maybe I can collaborate with you, but is there any way we can get some help on transplanting that?
I know some people.
Okay, great. I can help supervise.
We'll just yank everything out and plop it somewhere else. If there isn't a final destination, we'll find a donor location for the plants that are there.
Yeah, because they're all perennials and then the daffodils, of course. So maybe we can collaborate on that. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'll just say, as I see them digging up for the roundabout, I never thought about this before, but after the election, it occurred to me that Jackie might have to, redefine the radius so people know where to stand, if they can stand on the roundabout or not, or on the sidewalk around it, if it's going to be all of a sudden like much more limited where people can stand with their signs. It's going to push people toward town hall.
It's close to it. Well, they'll be able to ring one side of it because remember the sidewalks and crosswalks. So people will be forced to drive around the circle and look at the people.
You can't shelter eye. I wave at everyone.
And Eric, if I could, we have been digging up some red brick in the fill, and I bet it probably matches some red brick that ended up at your house.
I guarantee it does. Yeah,
when
that's
historic building got torn down.
Yeah, and my dad paid something like 3 cents a brick for those things back in like 1960 something, whatever it was. So let me know if he's selling that stuff. Yeah, Jackie, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that Mass General Law says that that the people can't campaign 150 feet within town hall. So if we have to move them over to the left as you're looking out the road, that's fine. But so I can't, I had a senior moment. I can't remember what else I was gonna say.
Well, and I can attest that is measured specifically. Jackie and Tony were out prior to this past election with a measuring tape. So rest assured.
Yeah, but every year it's been the same. They always know where it is. You know what I mean? It's always been pretty consistent to speak.
Yeah,
Now, be new point.
The other thing I was going to say is that the state primary is September 3rd. So I'm really hoping that Sean is able to meet his August 25th deadline, or it will not be fun getting voters to town hall. So that's
Okay.
it.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, last
Right.
update for the board, just a staffing update. We welcomed a new Board of Health Administrator this Monday. Jessica Edwards has joined us. She's a welcome addition. And she had her first Board of Health meeting last night, and she's still with us this morning, so that's great. We do have, and regarding the conservation agent, we have an offer letter out to a candidate, and cross your fingers, we'll hear back tomorrow whether she accepts.
Okay. Very
Thanks,
good.
Eric.
Thank you. Any last notes before we sign off here? Any motions to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right, in a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
All right.
Marion
I.
and Paul?
Aye, but I have one little suggestion for you before you close the meeting.
Okay. Go ahead.
That is, most of my other boards that I attend announce when their next meeting is going to be, so that those who are watching know when our next meeting is going to be. So it might make sense
That's a good-
for us to do that as we close the meeting, to say, come join us at our next meeting of such and such date.
So it's interesting. In this one circumstance, I'm hesitant to do that because the next meeting that we know of is actually the 30th, on May 30th. But there's some discussion on doing a standalone one agenda item meeting to meet with and I don't want to have a whole lot of questions on this for very obvious reasons. There's nothing on the agenda, to meet with Bob Murchison to go over some changes he's proposing on his developments. And we thought that was important. So that might happen. I'm not sure what's going to happen. It probably happen after the 30th, but I'm so unsure. I don't want people to tune out and think the next one's only guaranteed the 30th. Does that make sense?
Makes
Your
sense.
next regularly scheduled meeting is May 30th.
Yes.
And
Yes.
likely
The
that
next regularly
special
scheduled.
meeting that you referenced,
Same bad time,
it's
same
gonna
bad
happen
channel.
after that.
Absolutely. So yeah, the next regularly scheduled, please keep your eye on the webpage and agendas. I'm sure it'll go out. I'm sure it'll be one of the most well-attended meetings ever when we do, if we do something like that. Where, Bob is, I think, met with me and a couple others to talk about this holistic change he's looking to do with, all his developments, and that'll worthy of a standalone. So yeah, next regular schedule will be on May 30th. Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second, and Paul, how do you vote to adjourn?
Yes.
And okay, well, despite that's before 8 o'clock, so I'm going to say nay, but I'm outvoted, so we're adjourned. All right, see
Have
you
a
guys.
great weekend.
Absolutely.
Thanks.